Welcome to Let's Be Well Together podcast. We're your wellness check-in team. Join us each week or when you can. We enjoy exploring wellness concepts and reminding you to make time for wellness.
This is episode 144. And welcome to another episode of Let's Be Well Together podcast. It's Sheila Webster here, and I am joined by Cheryl Rickers. Hi, Cheryl.
Hi, Sheila.
So for What's on Your Mind, we are going to talk about the month of August.
Well, I thought August was great. I really liked when John interviewed you about your environmental, the changes you made every day to better your environment in terms of going from 2 cars to 1, which I think must have been, for me, it would be impossible.
Yeah.
Blair works out of town.
And it's hard because Blair actually uses his car for work.
Yeah.
Right? So that's a little bit different situation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I get that. Yeah.
I mean, I could probably go to and from work, but no, it wouldn't work for me.
Yeah, it's not for everyone, for sure.
But I mean, biking to the gym or is doable, but the grocery store and that sort of thing, I mean, you could get things delivered, but then that kind of defeats the purpose of
for sure
going from 1 car. So that's interesting. That takes some planning.
Yeah, and that's why I said to John, it does take planning. Like, it's not hard work, but it's planning, right? Mm-hmm. And so there was a few times where we were kind of like, oh, wait, we both need the car at the same time, right? Like, I have an appointment and you have an appointment, like, oh, no. So you got to kind of plan things and figure it out.
Yeah.
But I didn't know when I got the new strips that we've got for the laundry, the laundry strips and the detergent strips. And we actually got the soap bar for your shampoo and your conditioner. Oh. Yeah. So we got that as well. And they're all natural, you were saying. So it's actually helps the environment too.
Absolutely.
So it's much better. It doesn't release those, the fragrance and the toxins and all that kind of stuff.
Hormone disruptors.
Yeah. So I'm like, we didn't do it for that reason, but yay.
But lots of other benefits that you don't even think of.
Yeah.
Not to mention the money you save.
Yeah, it's great.
I mean, I think that was episode 133. It kind of was in the middle of August, but I really liked that. And I like that the whole podcast kind of gave you the idea to, hey, how can I make changes just in my little environment? So I thought that was great.
Yeah, because I was like, we all have to, if we all kind of clean up our backyard, then we're all doing something for the greater good, for the actual whole environment, if we all kind of fix up our little world. So that was the idea about that. And I'm actually really enjoying it for financial reasons. And now you're saying that it's better for our health too. So woohoo for us. And
awesome.
Yeah. The other thing, 133, the flip side I really liked. Elise and Steven again. I seem to really like Elise and Steven's flip sides. They were talking about
cute together.
funny names for their baby because every month or every week, I think their baby is a different fruit, a different fruit size. So they're like thinking of the names, this little kumquat or the little pear or little
grapefruit.
Yeah. So that's it. And it's kind of cute because they talk about the baby in those terms. Hey, I wonder what little grapefruit is doing today, or little grapefruit didn't like that food. So those kind of things.
Yeah, it's cute. It's fun.
Yeah, so cute. 132, I really enjoyed John's pop-up. He talked about how people are like flowers. And I was like, oh yeah, that's so true because I mean, it's really nice to have a whole field of lavender or a whole field of tulips, but man, I love seeing a multitude of different kinds of flowers.
The diversity.
Yeah. So then that made me think, what kind of flower am I? So I decided, I figured out what kind of flower I am. I think, I'm a rose.
A rose?
Yeah, because roses just all of a sudden pop. Like you can't miss them, They're just like, whoa, they're in your face. And they smell, like the smell is so noticeable too. Like you can't miss a rose. That's what I think. And that's the kind of personality I am. Like, pop, I'm in your face.
There she is.
And I asked, and I asked John what kind of flower he would be. And he said he's a cherry blossom tree.
Oh, interesting. It's funny.
So
wait, don't you have a cherry blossom tree that only comes out once a year?
Yeah, they only bloom for Maybe like 2 weeks, maybe.
Like kind of May 24 weekend around then.
Yeah, and they kind of go, they grow, and you're like, oh, it's gonna blossom, and it gets more pink, and then all of a sudden dead.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you're like flip your head and you miss it. So I'm like, oh, that's interesting, John, that you're just like, I just once a year.
And not people as flowers. Was that from An Untethered Life? I think The Untethered Soul.
Oh, okay.
I think he referred to that book a couple of times, maybe once in July, once in August. And I've had that book at my bedside at the cottage for about 4 years, and I still haven't read it. So now he's making me want to read it. So
yeah, because I read it too, and it was good. It had some nice things that made you think and stuff. Yeah, The Untethered Soul, and the Move That Body on 134 was
loved it.
Yep, the eliminating toxins and how you got to move the body to eliminate toxins.
Well, after hearing Martin Patella in July, his two episodes, you like, how can I get rid of these toxins? So I have a rebounder, which I did get in the spring just for fun. Some patients at work were talking about it, and it's great, but it also is good for clearing the lymphatic system, getting it going, and clearing those toxins.
So what exactly is that?
So, like a mini trampoline.
Oh, no, I didn't know that's a rebounder.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
So, and you can just even just do it. They call it like a health bounce. And literally you're just lifting your heels off the mesh. So you're just bouncing enough to get your lymphatic system going. And there are other things you can do, like you can tap different areas of your lymph nodes to help stimulate them. And then you bounce to help flush out. But even just bouncing is awesome. Wow. Exercise, and and it's good on the joints.
Yes.
And it's super fun. Yeah. And there's great choreography. There is actually tons of choreography on YouTube. Yeah.
Oh my God. I'm just thinking that we could put that on the website. Let's Be Well Together. You doing your bounce, some kind of choreography. Yeah. Bounce and bounce. I can see it right now.
Yeah, maybe not. But it's super fun.
That is really interesting. So you have that at work, and you do it at work.
We have them at work, but I have one for home too.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. So cool.
So sometimes I get up in the morning, and it's funny because there's a 10-minute podcast that I like to listen to in the morning, and it just wraps up news of the day, like news, entertainment, sports.
Okay.
Super quick. And it's about 10 minutes long. So I will just bounce to that.
Oh.
And then go on about my morning, have a shower, have a bath, go for a walk, whatever. And then go to work.
And that gets your gravity, gets everything moving.
It gets, yeah.
Well, that's interesting because it's kind of similar to me because I bike to work in the morning, right? And I work really early in the morning, right? So that sometimes I don't even notice that I'm doing it. I'm halfway through my bike. I'm not even awake yet. And it gets me going, right?
Oh, I'm definitely not awake when I'm jumping.
Yeah, when you're bouncing.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, so I have another question for you. For 132, What's on Your Mind, they were talking about regrets. And it was kind of like, does someone talk you into something? And do you have any regrets? So I was like, I wonder what regrets I have, that someone has talked me into. I'm like, I can't think of anything.
I never like to say, I regret not doing something or doing something because it might have changed the path of where I'm at.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And I'm happy with where I'm at. So I'm very careful about saying, I totally regret not whatever, because who knows what that might have changed on my route to where I'm at. So I don't look back. I don't look back. It's easier to look forward. Okay. That's why the windshield is bigger than your rear view mirror.
Oh, very good. Cheryl's got
look
her little...
than back. Okay, I think that might be the quote on the bulletin board.
Okay, well, that is true. The windshield is bigger than the rear view mirror, for sure. Yeah. Okay, so I'll tell you one regret I have. So I was living in Montreal, and I was really poor. I was a dancer, and I lost my wallet on the bus, and I had about $100 in the wallet. Right? Because in those days, you didn't...
That was a long time ago.
Yeah, it was a long time ago. So you didn't really, you didn't have debit. You couldn't just debit. You had to pay cash or credit. And I lost my wallet and it was gone. I was like, oh my God. Oh my gosh. My wallet, my ID, my everything. And then I got a phone call Someone found my wallet. A little boy found the wallet.
Oh.
Yes. And so I went and I was like, thank you so much. And I took the wallet and walked away. And I should have given him some money. I was so poor, Cheryl. I was just so poor that I was like, oh my God, thank God I can eat this month. But it was already lost to me. The money was gone, right? Like my wallet was gone. I should have given him some money. And I feel so bad about that.
Well,
now.
hopefully he was just happy with the pure joy that he witnessed by doing the right thing.
Let's hope. But that is one of the regrets that I have.
Well, that's not life-changing.
No, exactly. And that's exactly right. Like, you don't want to be like, oh, I really shouldn't have dated this person or done, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, because I agree with you. Like, you learn from mistakes and stuff, and you are the person that you are because of the things that happen. So I totally agree with you that way. And this is
if that's your only regret, I think that's awesome.
Yeah, well, for today it is anyways. The last thing I think we should talk about, because we are running out of time, is the 133 episode of Au Pair Experience. So Elise and Julie were talking about that.
Yeah, Elise has done a lot of really cool things.
You know, I was thinking that Elise's life is better than my life. My daughter's life is more exciting, or was more exciting than me. And I was also thinking that I'd be a darn good au pair.
Oh my goodness, yes. You'd have those kids whipped right into shape.
I should do that. But I just thought it was, first of all, I forgot that she even did that, right? Because it was the summer of her first year and university, and wow, it was so cool. And the fact that she did that all on her own, organized that all on her own as an 18-year-old, and went to Germany and then in England and was an au pair, I thought, wow, what a great experience.
At the castle, that's when she organized it for herself?
Yes.
Because she was to come home for that summer to go back to Queens.
Exactly.
In the fall, but she stayed. Wow.
So she wanted to stay in England or stay in Europe. And I basically said, well, listen, you need to figure out how you're going to make money, right? Because you're not just going to keep staying there and it's going to cost more money and more money. You have to make some money for your next year. And so this is what she came up with. So she didn't have to pay to stay anywhere, and they paid for her flight back and forth, and she got a little bit of money. So yeah, that was pretty cool. On the same note, Isabel talking about her travel and her study experience in England too. I thought that was really good.
Yeah, and fantastic.
How I wish I was young again. You know, all these people talking about their young experiences. It makes you kind of appreciate the fact that they're enjoying their youth and really benefiting from it. But also that, you know, sometimes I wish I was young again and could go do these things.
Oh, is that a regret I smell?
No, because, you know, we all did stuff, right? And what we could do and what we did and stuff. But it's like, wow, it just sounds like so much fun and so exciting. And I like living vicariously through them. Yeah.
I mean, we did have fun back in the day. So I'm sure if our kids knew all the things that we did, they would be like, wow.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Probably for sure. Okay. One more question, Cheryl. What did you think of yourself on the podcast?
Oh, it's always funny to listen to your own voice. I know you find the same thing, right? You sound, do I really sound like that? I was okay with it.
Good.
It's easy to have these conversations because obviously it's easy to talk to you, and the episodes are really interesting. So I find it very easy to do this. Now, if I was being interviewed about something I wasn't interested in or more technical, I might struggle a bit more, but I think it was okay.
Yeah, this is just fun. This is exactly what I wanted to do. When I listen to it, I'm listening to it, you know, in the car and by myself, and I want to talk about it. I want to talk about the stuff that's going on. So I'm really happy that you're willing to do this and come on and talk to me.
Oh yeah, because sometimes I do make little notes as I'm listening, because I'm often at my desk at work, and I'll be like, oh, grounding, got to talk to John about that, or I'll shoot him a message or whatever, because I it sparks a lot of information for me. So I like it.
That's awesome. Well, thanks for listening. Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining me, and I will talk to you next month.
Sounds good. See ya.
We are 6 weeks into our 8-week focus on facets, and we're working our way around the wellness wheel and highlighting a different category of wellness each week. The wellness wheel, you can see that logo on our website and other places. There's kind of a funny story too with it and the book. I self-published my book, and that doesn't mean I did everything myself, but I worked with a company and an amazing editor who helped me, and they reviewed everything. They gave me lots of tips. They asked me questions. I did lots of revisions. They did a final proofread, which gave me comfort, but it's up to me to deal with the pictures because I did all the logo myself and I designed it and all the rest of it. And the logo is a picture. And somehow I had sent them the wrong version, an old version of the logo just before kind of the final proof, before the book went to get printed. Anyway, so for whatever reason, I can't remember why, but I did a kind of a final look and I realized that on my wellness wheel, I had intellectual spelt wrong. It was missing an L. And luckily I caught it and fixed it. But I thought to myself, that would be hilarious. You put out a book on wellness and you talk to people how important intellectual wellness was, and I misspell the word intellectual in my logo. That's a complete side story. Intellectual wellness is just so important, and I don't see that as knowing stuff. So to me, it's not like, oh, that person knows everything, he's intellectually well. It's not IQ, it's not that kind of thing. It's about exercising our mind. So we exercise our body for physical wellness. We can exercise our mind for intellectual wellness, and that can be all kinds of things. And I love brainstorming. And I feel like people do well when they test things, they experiment, kind of the scientific inquiry. Curiosity is such an amazing trait and the source of so much joy in my life. I often come back to this expression too, the more we know how much we don't know. I'm not a big fan of people who are know-it-alls. They think that, there are some big specialists and we don't have anything to add to the discussion. People should always have something to add to the discussion, and that goes for my ideas too. To me, another part of intellectual wellness is being open-minded. So when I tell somebody about a fantastic idea I have, whether it's at work and I'm telling someone a strategy, or it's at home and I'm telling Sheila this great idea I have, I used to get ticked off when people would say, wait a minute, there's a problem with your idea. I felt like I had to explain to them why they were wrong, or it was like an argument to persuade them I was right. But the way better approach I've found in time is to ask them, okay, tell me more about the issue. And then when I talk it through, I realize, okay, I can make my idea better. And that's really worked well for me over time. Anyway, intellectual wellness, really important. I've actually having a hard time finding people to have discussions about intellectual wellness on the podcast. Luckily, I ran into Ryan Bush. There's been some amazing interviews with him. And I was really tempted to put up some of them on this week on our highlight. But I decided to go with Al Tordjman's discussion with me about Steven Covey and the 4 quadrants that Steven Covey talks about. Really interesting stuff. Important, unimportant, urgent, not urgent. When you think about how you spend a lot of your time, are you in the right box? Well, have a listen.
Guests are giving their time, expanding our minds. Today's interview is a bit different. I'm not going to do the normal bio where I tell you about the guest and what they do. I'm talking to my friend and family member, Al Tordjman. Hey, Al.
Hey, John. How's it going?
It's going great. So I was talking to Al about my different theories about wellness, and in particular, the concept where you develop the categories of wellness and then the activities that foster them and then a wellness check-in. And he said it reminded him of a book that he read and some concepts that were put forward. And who is that from, Al?
This individual is Steven Covey. He's written quite a few books, mostly about your value system and how to use one's time effectively.
Okay, and what I loved about it is, so I'm a to-do list person. So when I go through my wellness check-in and I do the areas and whatnot, I have a certain approach. And it's just kind of my personality. I like to write things down. I like to have my bullet points. I like to see what I'm missing. I like to see what I'm getting. But when I was putting my book together, Sheila read the manuscript as I was developing it, and she goes, John, I'm not a to-do list person. And I realized almost immediately that you have to have something that's flexible, that works for a whole bunch of different people, and that different people are free to use their own best way forward. And I actually invited people to let me know if you don't want to use a to-do list approach, what are some other ideas? And this thing you came up with, Al, where you were talking about 4 quadrants, I think it fits somewhere in this whole system, and we can figure out how at some point. But first of all, can you just tell me generally what are the 4 quadrants, and how does it work in terms of time management?
Certainly. I'd like to first just give some credit to Steven Covey, who came out with this quadrant system, which I read many years ago, and it's really stuck with me, and it's a great alternative to just creating a list. And basically, the quadrants, if you can visualize this, include things that you do with your time that are not important or important. And are they urgent or not urgent?
Right. So what I'm envisaging then is a large square, and within it 4 squares. One axis is important. The other axis is urgent, right?
Right.
So you'd end up with something like important and urgent, not important and urgent. What are the 4 quadrants?
Right. So, yeah, that's basically correct. If you just try to visualize this axis of things that are not important and important, or are they urgent and not urgent? So then you end up with, all right, so I've got a box here of things that are important and urgent, or important and not urgent. We could perhaps start with those 2.
Okay, well, so let's start. Well, let me talk at a high level first.
Mm-hmm.
If I understand right, because we were just chatting about this, the problem is a lot of us spend a lot of our time on urgent, not important, right?
Urgent, not important, or it depends on the kind of individual you are. You might be spending a lot of your time on not urgent, not important events.
Right, I guess that's a great point.
Right.
Okay, well then, in that context, I think you're right. What quadrant would you like to talk about first?
Let's start with probably the easiest to understand, which is the important and urgent activities that you have to face.
Okay, so can you think of any real-life examples?
Sure. So let's picture you're in the type of job where you have some deadlines to reach.
Okay.
And you really have to meet those deadlines. Well, you could consider that an important and urgent activity which you need to spend your time on. Another might be that you go to the doctors and you get your blood work done and you're told, oh goodness, you're going to have to pay attention to your cholesterol level, and I really need you to do the following things in order to deal with it. I would consider that an important, urgent thing that you need to address.
Okay. And then what would the next quadrant be?
So let's look at things that are not important and yet still urgent. So these might be interruptions, emails, calls, meetings, those kinds of things. You still have to deal with them, but if you can kind of delegate those things because you realize they're not truly important, that would be your best approach with that.
It's hard though, because I think the fact that it's urgent, like I hear what you're saying, and I really love this way of breaking things down, but it's also clarifying to me that like I think urgent can feel important. Just the mere fact that something's urgent sometimes makes me think it's important, and I don't take that minute to sit back and say, is this important?
This is a really good point, and that's the part of reflecting that you need to do on that is you go, all right, this appears to be an urgent situation. How truly important is this in relation to everything else I need to do with my time? And you might start to discover, well, this really isn't all that important. I only need to spend maybe 20 minutes on this. I don't need to remunerate about it, and I don't need to plan deeply for it.
What I love about this too is one of the messages, I'm not sure if you've heard the podcast, but one of the messages we try and send out often is so much of this is about self-awareness. Mm-hmm. Like it's just so important to try and be self-aware. And these are amazing questions to ask. You know, something hits you, you start to do it immediately, but you never actually stop and think, is this the right thing to do right now? Is this, you know, in a wellness check-in, for example, context, is this what I need to focus on? It may feel urgent, but is it important?
This is exactly it. And it's all about just really reflecting on how much time do I need to spend on this particular activity to achieve what I need to achieve in relation to the bigger picture of what's happening in your life.
Right. So what's another quadrant then?
So another quadrant would be the not important and not urgent. So let's think about this.
That doesn't sound like something I spend a lot of time on, but what is it? Like, what are some examples?
Well, I got to admit, sometimes it is fun to spend time in this quadrant.
True.
You want to unwind. It's like, geez, I've been dealing with things that seem important and urgent, but really, I just want to kill some time and lay back.
Okay, but I'm going to suggest that falls into the important, not urgent category. But anyway, we can argue about that another time. But can you think of some other things too that would be unimportant and not urgent?
Oh, there's a host of items that can take up your time of not important, not urgent. Let's think about it. Oh, let's do some busy work.
Right.
I want to clean up my closet, and I'd like to organize all of my clothes by color hues and, going from the darkest to the lightest. I mean, let's face it, we can find so many things that are basically time wasters.
Yeah,
right?
Like I would actually say there that probably cleaning up your closet is probably important, but color hues, maybe not so much.
Right.
But I get your point. Like, actually, if we think back, like whatever the examples might be, there are things we spend a lot of time on that are both unimportant and not urgent.
Certainly. Why don't you take a look at your smartphone?
There's
a section where you can go under your smartphone and see, how many hours did I spend on my smartphone today? I had an argument with my wife, and I said to her, I think you're spending probably 2.5 hours a day on your smartphone. She completely denied it. And we went on that particular section where you can find out how much time you're spending, and it was actually closer to 3 hours.
Ugh.
And so
I'm probably worse than that.
Yeah. So you got to ask yourself, how much of that time did I consider really important or urgent? It's probably a not important, not urgent activity. How much time do you spend watching TV? Let's face it, we all love our favorite shows. But if you're spending 4 hours a day doing that, is that the quadrant you want to be in for 4 hours of your day?
Okay, well, I'm going to have to move you off this quadrant because it's hitting too close to home, and it's also true. So what's the last quadrant?
All right, I decided to leave the last one as what I consider probably the one that can be life-changing for people, and it would be the important yet not urgent quadrant. So in this quadrant, we would be looking at activities that take some time to develop. It takes some level of planning, such as relationship building, finding new opportunities in life, personal growth, recreation. And I'd have to say that this quadrant best represents your particular podcast.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. And I love that too, that part of what we're trying to say is you have to put up building blocks. Okay, so I see my approach to wellness as building block. If you know your categories and your activities and you can do a check-in, that's something that you've taken time to learn about yourself through self-awareness and develop in yourself. You're doing this at a time, and I think I told you before we started, it reminds me of that quote by John Kennedy, the time to fix the roof is when the sun is shining, right? So when you have the time, you can do these important activities to set up these building blocks, and you're right. It's not urgent because you have to deal with if the doctor said you have to get this test, or if at work you have to get this done by a particular time, certainly you have to do those important and urgent things.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing wrong with doing unimportant, unurgent things for a time during the day. But find the time to do these important things that aren't urgent, that can set you up for a better frame of mind, for success at other times.
That's exactly it. And I would even take that a step further and say, instead of finding the time, when you start to think about your entire day and where you fall in the various quadrants, think of it as, I can manipulate how much time I spend in a given quadrant, particularly if it's not important and yet appears to be urgent, and start to devote some of that time to the important, not urgent quadrant of doing some planning that's really going to change my life.
No, and I love that. Again, it's a matter of starting to make informed choices and choosing, instead of letting life happen to you, making your life happen, making the most of the moments that you have. And so as I understand this, and we've talked now about the quadrants, so now I want to talk more generally about how I should be thinking about them. This is a tool that helps me understand how much time I should be putting in each of these quadrants during the day.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not a matter of saying never do one category, never do another. It's saying, hey, think about it, become self-aware of where you're spending a lot of time. And do you really want to be spending 4 or 5 hours a day on unimportant and unurgent things?
This is precisely it. And it's interesting because that particular quadrant of not important yet urgent can trick people into thinking, oh, this is an important and urgent activity. I really have to deal with it. So just step back for a minute when things appear to be urgent and ask yourself, how important is this really? If I'm able to spend less time on this particular activity, will it really make a big difference in the grand scheme of things? This idea of the quadrants is to help you step back and reflect a little bit of asking yourself, how important is this particular activity in the grand scheme of things? Will this contribute to changing my life for the better?
Okay, and then I guess I can't help but ask, because I'm still grappling with the best approach to, the practical approach for the wellness check-in. Is it a to-do list approach that I use? Other people do it more intuitively. You said you read this about, 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
How do you actually make this work in your life? Is it a matter of kind of reflection before you fall asleep? Do you write something down? How have you been using it in a way that helps?
Well, I sort of try to break down my day, and I look at it almost in quarters. I look at the morning time, and I ask myself, oh, here are the activities I'm going to take on today. And I kind of just intuitively ask myself, how much time am I really going to want to spend on this? And is it going to give me the kind of value that I expect to have more in the long term? And you got to remember that spending time building relationships, long-term planning, personal growth, those are things that build up over time, and they appear that those are the things that sometimes we tend to leave for later activities, but they're greatly important to give them some attention.
And is it fair to say, I think what I'm hearing you saying is, because this is kind of instilled in you, because this is something you read a long time ago and that you gravitate towards, it kind of just kicks in intuitively as you plan your day. But it's definitely there. It's definitely something that's in the back of your mind. Or do you actually have a grid that you on your computer or on your piece of paper?
I don't have a grid that I use, but it does help sometimes if you're feeling you're being a little bit obsessive compulsive about certain activities. You can spend an awful long time just going away and just killing time on them. And it really gives you a different perspective of what am I doing and which quadrant am I in right now.
Okay, so it's kind of intuitive most of the time, but every once in a while when you feel like it's worth it, you actually stop and think about quadrants and where things fit and what you should be devoting your time to?
Absolutely. And usually I do that when I think about my week. I think, how much time did I spend, spending time with my wife? Did we go out on our date this week? Was I in my important, not urgent category? Did I get enough exercise in this week? What am I doing for personal growth? Because really, I'm really aiming to gravitate towards the important, not urgent quadrant. Obviously, the other ones are a little bit clearer to see. It's this one of the important, not urgent that takes time to build and is less likely that you're going to think it's worth spending time in when in fact it's probably the most important quadrant.
Well, that's amazing and fascinating. So thanks for that. So we're getting toward the end, and our podcast, this is perfect actually, and it'll be interesting to see how you answer this. Given your quadrants, we talk about different categories of wellness, and each of us may have our own. I have 8 that I've identified as important to me, but we're living in a busy life. And even for someone who's retired, there's not enough time in the day to do everything we want in all the areas of wellness. So we ask every guest the same question, which is kind of like a mini wellness check-in, which is, can you think right now of one area of wellness that's important to you that maybe is languishing right now? And can you think of even one activity you could do to foster wellness in that area?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say for me, I need to spend a little bit more time in relationship building. I've been preoccupied with starting up a home-based business. I've been focusing an awful lot of time on restructuring my finances. And these are all great long-term planning in the not urgent important category. But within that one category, there's also relationship building, which I need to spend a little bit more time on in order to feel more balanced in my life.
Yeah, and for us, I throw that into my category of social wellness, a really important one, and one that can bring a lot of joy and support to our lives. So thanks for that, and thanks for these insights. I just think it's fascinating, and it's one of these things where I've learned something. I'm doing a podcast to try and get a message out about things that are helpful to me, and here I'm hearing from all kinds of guests on things that help me, even within that framework. So thanks.
That's great. Thank you.
We hope you're enjoying the show, and we hope you're finding ways to foster wellness in the categories that are important to you. If you like what you're hearing, head to our website, letsbewelltogether.com, and then to the archives page. It includes a quick summary of the different segments of all of our shows back to the start. Have a look and see if there's something interesting you want to listen to, and listen to one of our past episodes. There's a thought. Popped up while running. They say beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Well, what if I tell you that age is in the eye of the beholder? It is for me. And I have always liked new wave, alternative, punk, whatever you want to call it, music. I was lucky because my teenage years is when punk came out in the late 70s and early 80s. And I've always liked that edge to the music. And although I like all kinds of music, from jazz to classical to rock, lots of pop, all that stuff, I still love alternative, and I love to keep my ears open for new alternative stuff. And I feel like maybe it's because I liked it when I was a teenager, but now that I'm older, when I hear that music, it makes me feel young. And I like those moments in life when I'm out there and things are happening, and it makes me remind me of how my mind worked when I was young. And I feel like if I keep thinking like that, that maybe I don't age the same way. Of course, my body's going to break down, but that doesn't mean that I can't feel like a kid and be like a kid. And the reason I'm talking about that is because I was out doing my run today, and I often put on alternative music when I'm doing my hill sessions or when I'm doing even intervals. And a song came on, Pork and Beans by Weezer. It's a pretty hilarious song. And basically it's that typical kid anthem type thing where you're like, I'm not going to do what you want me to do. I'ma do the things that I wanna do. I ain't got a thing to prove to you. And there's a whole bunch of songs like that on my alternative mix, and I love it. I ain't gonna wear the clothes that you like. I'm fine and dandy with the me inside. And the other thing is I'm often walking to work these days, and so I throw on my backpack and I walk to work, and I have to walk by a high school and a grade school on my way. And sure enough, I see grade school kids walking with their backpack to school, and then high school kids walking with their backpack to high school, and there's me walking with my backpack. So I'm like a kid. It's still a kid. So anyway, I think it's great. If you feel young, in your mind you're young, you think like when you're young, it's a good young feeling.
I'm Cameron, and welcome to another installment of the Adventures of the Starving Artist. Hey, checking in. Summer's drawing to a close, autumn is rapidly approaching. The air is starting to cool off and become a little more crisp in the mornings and the evenings, which is one of my favorite things. And believe it or not, some of the leaves up here have started to turn. We got some bright oranges and a few with some yellowy leaves so far. I'm looking forward to the really deep reds that come with later days. Not that I want to rush through the end of summer. It's a beautiful time of year. I've been enjoying the sun when I can. With the changing of the seasons, of course, the changing of the music game comes with it. In this case, this time of year, believe it or not, even though it's not quite October, we're a few days away here at the time of this recording, I've already started work on wintertime Christmassy gig material. So I've been plugging away with my headphones on so as not to disturb my neighbors and my brother, playing Christmas jazzy renditions of Christmas tunes, and I have to say, it's just a weird thing. That's all I wanted to tell you today. It's just very strange having to sit there and work through something like Let It Snow while it's sunshine and 24 out and just gorgeous, you know? Kind of strange. It always sits funny in my brain, but it's always worth it because as the actual wintertime approaches, it gets really busy with lessons as well because all the students are looking for reschedules because of wintertime, like Christmas parties, and, you know, it's just a chaotic schedule time for everybody. And so getting ahead of the game on that means on the rehearsal, means I can be more flexible with that stuff and keep all the balls rolling, which is great. That's all I wanted to talk about today. Just a little glimpse into the life of a working musician here. It's late September, and I'm already plugging away at Christmas stuff to get ahead. Very strange. I hope that you're having a more seasonal time than I am. A more appropriately seasonal time, I should say. Enjoy the last of the summer and the beginning days of fall, and I'll check in with you soon. For now, that's all I've got. I'm Cameron. This is The Starving Artist. Until next time.
Please remember that we're not providing advice. We hope to inspire you to work towards balance, and we urge you to consult with qualified people if you need advice. The people on the show are speaking in their personal capacities. Their views expressed are their own, and don't represent the views or opinions of their outside contacts, their employers, or anyone else. We try to get things right, but we can't guarantee everything we say is correct, or that the things we talk about will work for you. Let's be well together, and let's be sure to do that in a safe way.
And it's sign-off time. It's Sheila here with Elise and John.
I'm here.
Hello. Well, I've had a lovely week. I had to work 40 hours, plus I worked a wedding on Saturday night. So that was at a barn. And here in Ontario, the weather was maybe 5 degrees to -1. It was cold. I've never been so cold as I was at this wedding. And all the guests were wearing their winter coats. Like while they were eating dinner, like it was a cold wedding.
It's an odd sounding wedding.
It was. And the bride wore black and the maid, the flower girls and everybody were in kind of an orangey red, which was really beautiful fall colors. It's just that kind of wedding. So
almost like maybe a Halloween-y type wedding?
Halloween-y type wedding. They had pumpkins and yeah, it was that was their theme. So that was an interesting week for me. And that's pretty much all I have. So what about you, Elise? What's going on with you?
I had a fun week. I know at school we're building up to Halloween, which is always really exciting.
Yeah.
But I think the most exciting news we got was that we set a date for our induction for the birth of our baby.
Yeah. So this time next week, hopefully, Elise will have a little baby and we will finally get to know the baby's name.
Woo, very exciting. So we've just kind of been planning and building up to it because we have to do a bit of a drive to get down to the hospital where we will be having the baby. So just kind of figuring everything out. And then the last minute things we have to do around the house to make sure the house is ready for baby because next weekend, we're hopefully bringing him back up here.
Yeah.
So it's a really exciting time and we're just finally almost there.
Yeah. And how are you feeling? Like, how are these last weeks going for pregnancy?
You know what? I've been still feeling really good. I haven't been too sore or anything, like, a little soreness in my feet and then my back, but I've been really lucky with my last trimester. I've been feeling really good.
Good.
I'm able to rest when I get home. And I think that's a big help. But I am excited for the next phase.
Yeah.
To have the baby out, to meet him, to hold him.
Exactly. So when you get home from work, you think the baby's going to let you rest? No.
No. No more resting.
No more resting.
I took advantage of naps this weekend for sure. How about you, John?
It's going to be pretty mind-blowing when you're holding your own baby and you're going to be super tired, I'm sure, but still, it's just pretty incredible. So you can't re-experience the first baby, the first couple weeks, how you're just like always just in total awe of the whole thing.
Yeah.
I just got back from my long run. Usually I do a long run on a Saturday morning. We're recording this on a Sunday afternoon. And I just got back, so I'm still trying to get my head back together again. I had a nice chill time out there. Didn't really do a lot this week other than the normal, working really hard. Did some podcast stuff, which was great, setting up some interviews, doing some interviews. And co-host Noor Assad dropped by yesterday. She had lunch with us. It was really nice. We got to visit, do a few sessions. So that's kind of what my week's going like. I'm really excited for next week. We are going to go and try to get to the hospital too. It's a little bit of a drive for us, but we're going to try and get there and be there so we can also be astounded by a new life in the world.
Very exciting.
Yeah. We hope you're enjoying the Focus on Facets, and this week was intellectual, and we'll see you again next week.
That is it for today's show. Please try and make wellness a priority.
You deserve it.
If you feel the need to talk to someone or ask for help, please do that.
Accept yourself for the person you are.
So long.
Adieu.
Auf Wiedersehen.
Goodbye.